Hey,
Good morning, everyone.
good morning. Hey,
Good
Jaber.
morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hi, everyone. Very nice to see you here, guys. Thank you so much
Hi,
for
good
coming to
morning.
the webinar. Good
Hi.
morning.
Morning.
Nice.
Um, hello.
Good morning.
Good
Good morning.
morning. Thank you for being here today.
morning.
So guys, we are going to start the webinar because, I just want to be mindful with everyone's time and make sure that, we pass the information that you need. You're all going to be muted, by the way. So I'm here with, two of our staff members from Global Startups, Marcel Solda, which is the, program coordinator for the first phase of the Startup Visa program. And JP, he is basically our community engagement coordinator. So he basically, provides information about events and some other activities in the community. We also have our, more important guest here is David Comtois. He's our lawyer for the Startup Visa program. He has been helping our startups, and he has the preferred firm that has been working, with startups about this particular program. So my name is Miriam Lazarte. I'm the CEO of Global Startups. Just to give you, some initial information, we have been working since 2017 with over 300 startups. And before we were, part of the Startup Visa program, we work with international startups landing in Canada. So just to give you a reference of numbers, we have presented over 50 cases to IRCC for particular Startup Visa program. All of them have been approved based on business fit for the Canadian market. We will have some conversation about, when somebody is rejected, why that happens. And then, about more than 80% of our companies are located in Ontario. So for this particular group that we are looking forward right now, we will be prefer, companies that are going to be located in Ontario just because of, certain circumstances that are coming up in the future. I encourage you guys to, to put some questions or comments in the chat. We will be providing, some information as far as I'm speaking here. I don't want to give you a lecture, okay? So I want to be very interactive with you guys. I'm very transparent. We are a community that speaks up, very, let's say, up in front about the good, bad, and ugly about the program. So we try to be as transparent as possible with the companies, and of course, the last metric that you see here, 100% of the companies are representing emerging markets. So that's the good part. So I'm going to start with some information about the Startup Visa program. And again, if you see me and maybe speaking too fast or maybe asking some extra information about our community of the program, just please stop me and I will stop there. The idea is, of course, having a conversation with you and answer some questions through this presentation. So I'm going to go to the first part, okay? You are going to see there are two types of requirements, okay? One requirement is from the government. The other requirement is from the designated entity. So both of them are important for the companies because you have to comply with both, okay? So for those that have gone to the, the government website, you can see that there are some requirements about, the company having certain amount of ownership, or the founders having certain amount of ownership of the company. The business has to be incorporated in Canada. They have to be, manage, operate in any province in Canada except for Quebec. And, you have to basically, this is one of the most important parts here. And believe me, this is one of the reasons why some companies or some founders get rejected for work permit initially, is demonstrate English level, proficiency, is required for all co-founders that are coming to Canada. to have a minimum level of 5. There are some rumors that this is going to go up. I believe that probably is going to be true, that this level is going to go up. It's necessary for business. It's necessary for you to communicate through, through the community here. So just please take in consideration this one. And then, there are like this one also tend to be one of the requirements that people is like, what do you mean sufficient funds? What the government means sufficient funds. And sometimes you see a table in the website that describes sufficient funds, that's for permanent residents from personal perspective for living here. And, there is another sufficient funds for operationals. And I will pass that, question to our lawyer when it's time to speak about that. Okay, for now, I just want you to be considering that, yeah, this may be a little bit vague. There is a reason why it's a little bit vague because, every single business has different type of operations at different type of complexity. So, it's our mandate as a designated company to do like the due diligence to know that the business actually has sufficient funds, to operate. But also it will be a personal sufficient funds. So I know it tends to be a little bit complicated there, but I will answer those questions in case that somebody have some questions around that. Now, you also have, as I mentioned, the other part is the requirements from the designated organization, okay? This is very important here. Every designated organization has a different requirement. And the reason why is because the government is basically trusting us to do the right due diligence on you. So for some business, some designated organizations, do the right, due diligence may be different from entity to entity, right? But there are some things that are like important for all of us. The first thing is that the company has to be technology-based with intellectual property. And if you don't know what is intellectual property at this point, then you're in trouble because you have to have that. You have to have, something that is owned by you, like, and this is not trademarks. It has to be like a strong copyrights or patents. And we are not expecting to see like you have something already patented right now, but it's patentable, right? So you have a strong claim there. Again, there is a reason why the government is asking for this. If you are intending to grow a tech company in this country, you will need investment. Investment is not going to happen if you don't have intellectual property. So it's kind of like a catch-22 here. You have to have it. Demonstrate traction is important for us too. In our experience, after working with more than 50 companies in the startup visa program, and before that, for the companies that have been landing here, the first year of operations is the most difficult year. It's the year that you don't have funding available. There are some grants in the market that for sure can help. But in general, it's like you don't have funding available, from other sources. So you have to have some traction in your home country, or you have to have like at least, enough investment for you to start growing. This can be very challenging, especially for certain companies, for example, when you are like in health tech, clean tech. That can be very challenging because sometimes you don't have sales. In those cases, you have an MVP. But if you don't have investment, believe me, it's going to be very, very difficult to grow the company here. So this is why we don't receive companies in ideation, because ideas, everyone can provide an idea. A company with traction that has something solid at home is in our view a scale up, and in that way, you will have better chances to succeed in North America. Again, matching up the government English proficiency, it has to be financially stable. Don't take the 150 as as a number for every single company. Every single company has a different take in the different business. So this may vary from company to company. But let's say if you don't have minimum, that is kind of difficult, to operate in Canada. And of course, you have to, in our view, you have to be able to incorporate in the first phase of the process. And that's basically between the first 3 months that you have in the program. So you find our criteria, of course, in the website. You will see we have now an AI agent that is kind of like answering some questions more efficiently. But of course, if you have any questions, this is the moment to ask them. I'm going to pass to the next slide. I'm assuming there is no question, right?
No,
Okay.
I don't.
So yeah, so I will continue passing, but if you guys have questions, please just put it there. So this is some program information that may be good for you to understand, how things progress in our company, like when we are selecting startups. So first, we don't do pre-screening or pre-talks. You just have to apply directly to the program if you think that, the program is for you. Like, you can read the criteria and say, yeah, I may have a chance with you guys. When you send us that information, then is when we can review the case, right? And if you actually meet the criteria, then, Marceli here is going to contact you and start scheduling an interview. If you don't meet the criteria, then, she's going to send you an email and telling you why you don't meet the criteria, but, that's how it is. We schedule basically 3 interviews. So one interview is with Marceli and Atilio, which is another team member that we have. I think Debs is also there. I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
Couple of team members are in the first interview, basically validating some information and kind of deep down in what you guys are presenting. And then you have a second interview, and that second interview will be with me. And I would like to have a conversation with each member that wants to immigrate to Canada. So if you have up to 5 co-founders or 3 co-founders or 2 co-founders, I would like to speak with each of you, right, in that interview. And then if these 2 interviews are good, then you are going to be having an interview with our advisory board for a Visa program. And they basically will, evaluate your market fit. They are going to evaluate your IP. They are going to evaluate your team. It's a very short interview, so you have to be ready to prepare like a 5 minutes presentation and say, what is important for us, which is, why you want to come here, why is that your company is a good fit for, this particular market and all that. And then, September 2025, we start with the first phase. In this phase, we basically, are aiming that you will have enough information to incorporate your business in Canada, start working on all the paperwork that you need for the Start Visa program. And then, you will have a deep market research and analysis, not just for us and for your business, but for also the immigration process. So you can, demonstrate that you have enough knowledge and why your company, has a good fit for this. And then in January 2026, we give the letter of support to those that are like, that have finalized with all the paperwork. We enter into the market expansion strategy, funding, investment, sales, we put, some advisory and connection with the industry experts and some other people in the market. So I'm going to stop there because I know there are some questions that are popping up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first one, if you are already in Canada, are you still eligible to apply?
Yes, we do have some startups that have applied within Canada, and that's still okay.
What if you're outside Canada with a working prototype?
That's basically an MVP.
Yeah.
It depends, again, like you can have an MVP, but at the same time, if you have, you don't have the financial to support yourself, to develop further than that MVP, then it's going to be tricky for you.
Would you have any space for this year?
Yes, we do. We are accepting companies for September 2025. And by the way, from that group, two of the companies are going to receive the letter of support in December instead of January because we have an extra two letter of support this year that we can give a little bit earlier than, than January 2026.
All done.
All done?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I hope that that responds to your questions. I'm going to go to the next slide. You can continue popping up questions, and I'll be happy to answer once I finish with this slide. So the timeline, guys, is that, your business documents English test must be completed by December 2025 for those that are selected into the program. Personal documents should be prepared early January. I'm going to pass that, to David when it's time for him to present, because this is a burden here. Like every time we try to prepare companies for this part, and it's like, it takes a lot of time to actually prepare this. It's important also to know the letter of support is given one time. There is no correction, there is no extension, there is no duplication, there is no new letter of support. If you missed the 6 months to present documents, the window to present those documents, all this effort is done, right? I cannot extend it. I cannot give you a new one, okay? It's important that you have everything ready. So that's why for us, this time between September and December is very critical, because it's a time for preparation. So you should be fully prepared by the end of, the first phase. This is the other misconception. People start talking about, oh, I get the letter of support, I get my PR, I get my work permit. And, all this starts when you finalize documents with IRCC. So I can give you the letter of support in January, but you didn't finalize the documents until June, and that's pretty late and very scary. Then, your process starts with the government actually in June, and you start counting from there, right? Like the process. So you cannot start counting from September when you enter to the program. You have to start counting when you actually, send the documentation there. And I want to tell this like for the 100th time for some that have listened to me before. The letter of support is not for sale. You're paying for a business program here. So people sometimes ask like, oh, what if the process that goes wrong and then IRCC decline my process? There is no, return of money or something like that. This process is to make sure that your business is successful in Canada. The letter of support should have not any cost for you. Nobody should be transactional with the letter of support or the commitment certificate, okay? So if you have an entity trying to sell you this, it's worthless. And I'm telling you why. Because a letter of support is not going to give you your permanent residence. It's not going to give you your work permit. This is a transaction with the government. You have a business, they give you a work permit. You have a business growing, they give you a permanent residence. And you will have to prove that you have a business running. So if you don't, paying for a document is throwing the money in the garbage, okay? So you have to work really hard for this. And this is why, the last point comes here. That it has depend heavily in how you are presenting the case. This is also the reason why we try to discourage you to be working with consultants that are just connecting you, but that don't know enough about the system, and lawyers that don't know about the system. This program is very particular, has to be a person that knows. And if you don't know if your lawyer knows or something, ask your lawyer or ask your consultant how many cases he or she has represented, how many cases have been successful through the representation. Because it's not for permanent residence, it's not for work permit, it's a startup visa permanent resident, it's a startup visa work permit, okay? It's a very, very niche type of program. And so this is where we'll see also many cases going into getting work permits decline, and having, delays in the process. So if you are listening right now, please listen careful to this point, because it's really one important point, okay? So I'm going to stop there just to open for questions.
Yeah, we have one here that is good because it's the timeline and something that David can help as well.
Mhm.
So we have an innovative tech startup incorporated outside Canada. Is it possible to apply to the program? And when do we need to move the company to Canada, incorporate, and also receiving the PR? So it's kind of like the timeline, the whole thing.
Yeah, so the timeline you see here, right? So just business documents have to be done by December 2025. So that means that your incorporation has to finish by then, okay? So moving the company is a different thing. You start with incorporation and then you move operations. That moving of operations can happen after January, just because, the first step is kind of like incorporating, making sure that you are doing the, are trying to get into the right decision here, right? In moving operations, you will have to start from January. And many times it will depend when you get your work permit, right? And when you apply for your work permit. It will come many questions around, whether I should or not apply for the work permit. I will leave it for David. The IRCC has to receive your documents by June 2026. And again, don't wait until June because it's a lot of documents that you have to prepare from personal and business. And if you wait until last minute, then, you are going to say, oh, I need to correct this. I need to do this. I need to do that. And there is no time for correction. And then the letter of support is done, right? So this letter of support has a lifetime and it finished in June. And, the permanent residence basically can take up to 40 months. And that's the maximum. We have seen cases that have been resolved in 18 months. The fastest case we got previous pandemic was resolved in 3 months, right? I'm not hopeful that any of the new cases are going to be resolved in 3 months because, pandemic basically, sorry for the word, but screw up everything. And there are a lot of backlog in the system. So the more difficult, the weakest your case is, the longer it may take. Because then, you have to demonstrate a lot of things. And if you don't get the right lawyer, you don't get the right entity around you, this time certainly can trigger the system to be even longer, because you have to be super, super clear with the company. Having said that, IRCC doesn't see a reason why you cannot grow while you're waiting for your permanent residence, right? So you have to still do the efforts and keep growing, in the market, and that's why we are here. So keep growing in the market so you can, demonstrate that you are making the efforts, right? If you present your case today and you have 0 sales, 0 traction, in 3 years after you are 0 sales, 0 traction, guess what? You may have a decline in your case, right? Like it may be a rejection there. So it will be important that you continue working. And that's why it's also important to know who can apply for the work permit. Because it's important for us also to have somebody here. But in the meantime, we have been able to work with many companies online. There is no reason why you cannot grow at to certain level online. We have to be realistic. There's not going to be like a super sell online, but it's going to be some traction. Questions?
The other one is about immigration. I think
Okay, it's for David.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to give you here some key elements for you to succeed, okay? Some of that, the first, as I mentioned, is that you have to really have a skilled immigration lawyer. You are in a very vulnerable position, especially those that are in certain countries, that are difficult to immigrate to other places. You get a lot of people with cheap prices and, giving you like, certain like deals in the market. And, I'm sorry, but you get a lot of scam on this. And that's why we do the webinar, because we want to be transparent with you. This is very important that you get a very good lawyer to present a very good case. So all the co-founders have to initiate the application. It must be all the team completing that application. It's not like, one completed first, the second completed. You can do that for work permit, but I'm going to pass that for David also to explain it. But for permanent residents, everyone has to put the application at the same time. A strong business plan and, how you implement your strategy to grow here. That's why we are here. We are here to help you with that part. That's why you're paying for the program. Stay actively engaged with us because, if you think that you're going to get a lot of support, you disappear and you're just like, I got a lot of support, there's nothing else I'm going to do, then there is nothing like we can do, to help you through the process. We want to be successful, especially if we select you. We have a commitment with the government that we select a good company for this program. So we want you to be successful. To keep engaged is important. And, you will have to pivot several times your financials, and that's okay too, right?
No, you can
No,
go ahead.
I can go? Okay. So this is another important one, is why cases fail. So I'm going to, the one thing for why cases fail, we never happen to have that, but some other entities have this: insufficient market research and lack of clarity, So if they put in the shoes of an IRCC officer that probably never had business before, right? If you are not clear enough with the officer and how your business is going to be, a successful business in this country, it may be a successful business in your country, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be successful business in North America, especially because we are talking about a mature market that has a lot of competition for you. So you have to be extremely clear. Officers can still decline a case because it's not good enough for the market. Of course, this part of not having a good market fit product for Canada, you are not tracking your metrics or milestone. Many times during the process, the officer can ask you for updates. And if it doesn't ask you for updates, then you should be sending, some information. But if you don't have any traction, any metrics, through the process, then of course, that can be a sign that you are not working enough on this. This is really common, hiring consultants that are not specialized in the study visa program, or lawyers that are just like not having experience in this area. I have cases of people that tell me like, look, I hired a ground consultant, can you fix the case? And it's not fixable. Unfortunately, the new lawyer cannot fix what the other had done, okay? So it's important for you to know that. Lack of financial stability is 100% sure. 100% sure. This is one of the reasons, why people may get declined, is because by the end of the process, you haven't been able to demonstrate that your company is financially stable. And this is a reason why we have 2 cases that were declined. One of the cases was reverse, and I can tell you why, it was a reverse decision, but this is kind of out of control of us. If you remember, the first slide I mentioned that we have 100% cases approved business case. These disapprovals have not been because of the business case. It has been because of technical, let's say, rejection. If you have 5 co-founders, and one of the co-founders that you selected, to be here in Canada, decides over the process, I don't want to do this anymore, everyone gets rejected, okay? So we got like a couple of cases when one of the co-founders got rejected, one of the companies got rejected because the co-founders left, or one of the co-founders left. And you say, well, this can happen in a company. Like, this is a very white and black situation with IRCC. It's in between the rules. You have to be really, really sure that all your co-founders are going to finalize the process with you. Because you don't, everyone gets declined, okay? The only reason why, it's acceptable for somebody, for example, to leave the process is because, let's say, one of the co-founders got a different way to enter to Canada. It's a different process for permanent residents, and, probably got a faster track. In those cases, you can let go your co-founder, and the other team will continue with the process. And this is why one of the cases got, the rejection approved after an appeal decision, because it's between the rules. So there are two reasons why a co-founder can leave if gets basically another way to enter to Canada as a permanent resident, or if the person die. So I know it seems extreme, but that's how it is. Okay. Recently, you can also be declined because of your English level. If one of the co-founders doesn't have the English level, then it will trigger the whole process. Questions?
Yeah. Which are like the business documents that we mentioned in that slide?
Business documents?
Yeah.
Okay, business documents. We
Yes.
mentioned the business plan. We mentioned incorporation, financials, IP. I'm missing anything?
The job description of each one of the
Job
companies.
description also, because this is amazing to me, but I imagine that, not necessarily happen to every company, but if you have co-founders, you should know what your co-founders do and have a title for your co-founders and activities for your co-founders. So it's very suspicious when you don't know, so you have to have a very, detailed job description.
The other one, does the product necessarily needs to serve the Canadian market, or the business in Canada can serve the international market?
Well, that's a good question. There is a case where we can defend, you are serving international markets because, Canada is a very small country. Like, you are not here because of the Canadian market. It's 40 million people, You have a case to serve other markets, but you have to have a reason why you're coming here with your business, It's because it facilitates you, business with other countries. It's because you do research and development here. It's, it must be like a very strong reasons, because you can grow global from any other country. So why are you selecting Canada in particular, right? So that you have to put feet on ground and think very logical about this, because this is what, you put in the shoes in the IRCC officer, and it's like, okay, you tell me that you are not serving the Canadian market, but you are serving global markets, so why you came, right? So just think about that.
The other one, it's like a successful business already, and they are questioning if even they are already successful, if they need to wait to receive the letter of support in January 2026.
Of course, because the successful that you are talking about is successful in your point of view, is in your country. You have to demonstrate traction in the Canadian corporation. That doesn't mean you have to have clients in Canada. That means that you have international clients paying, for example, the Canadian corporation, right? So if your business is so successful, you should be able to show traction here too, right? So there is a demonstration in the middle, and you have to kind of like put a case for the officer to review that.
The other one, they have a device that is already, they have patents and so on, and they want to produce here in Canada. But they, could we still face heavy fines or have our case dismissed because we want to produce the first time in Canada?
No, I mean, that are actually encouraging, because you want to you want to make a production. Now, the downside of that is that, do you have enough money to put a production here, right? So if you say like, oh my God, I'm going to put up, I don't know, manufacturing or something here, you're gonna start small, but at the same time, starting small means that you're going to hire some people around, or somebody from your team is going to be here. One person is not going to make the product if it's a physical product, okay? So hiring is very expensive in Canada. Having a location is very expensive in Canada. We can help around, to find some ways, to find locations and all that, but you still have to put a lot of like investment in that side. So it's exciting that you're putting that investment for the government, but at the same time, it's like, if you're saying like, oh, I just have $20,000, I want to put like a manufacturing, that doesn't fly, right? Doesn't go along.
The other one, what if the process takes 2-3 years, and then in the meantime, the startups fails? Does the PR fail as well?
It's a difficult question. Like, they are expecting you to be doing as much as you can for the business to be successful, right? So yeah, it can be like, a lack of empathy by the government why your business fell in that period of time. It may be because it was not sufficient financially, or was not financially strong. It was because it was not a market fit. If you hear those two things are part of the criteria at the beginning, right? So that may be a lack of judgment from the designated organization, or maybe, some problems in the team. Many things can happen, but I cannot give you 100% answer that a case like that will be approved. So you have to be really, really strong believer that this is going to be something that is going to work here. So that's how it is.
Yeah, and the other one is about visas and so on that I think that we can leave to
To
David.
David, right? Okay. So some recommendations here. Again, this is probably one of my last slides here. So just if you enter into this process, one of the recommendations we do is like just update IRCC, as often as possible with achievements, with what you have done in the market. That helps with the process. We have seen process moving because, of the updates. Prepare your business and personal documentation from now, because this is a long process. Like if you are saying like, oh my God, this is a big investment, a lot of time that I have to spend, a lot of documentation, it's expensive, all that, maybe you are not prepared for this program. That's why, we just have 10 letters of support. We have every single organization have, certainly dozens and dozens of applications. So if you get, let's say lucky to enter into this, just, put the time on this, because it's going to take, a lot of efforts. And we are here to put 120%. You have to put the 120% too, Update your business plan. You have to be constantly pivoting. That's why we are here too, just to guide you through. We can guide you also where to find, alternative finance, but it's like, there is a constraint there. So you have to try to find where your fundings are coming. There is a lot that you can do online. So just if you listen, if you're coachable, you will get there. And yeah, email marketing is really, really important. So just, I'm going to leave this for a minute here for somebody that, want to take a screenshots and, get Marceli's email. Please, again, don't ask her for individual calls. It's not going to happen until you actually get an interview with us after applying for the process. Otherwise, it's very difficult because we get like 4 or 5 applications per day, or people asking questions per day. It's very difficult to manage the amount of, people trying to get clarity over the process. So that's why we are here in this webinar. Questions?
Go through. I think that one thing that we need to clarify is related to MVP, that we only accept MVP for biotech and medtech.
Yeah.
Or like if it's a SaaS business, they need to have.
Yeah, SaaS business. I'm sorry, guys, that part is really like, has to be like with some traction, because SaaS, you can grow anywhere. Like, if at this point you are now growing in your home country with SaaS, then you have less opportunities here to grow, right? And yeah, if you have AI, because everyone has AI right now, you have to explain very well what AI do you have, okay? Because it's also like very common. I think like with questions and all that, I super overpassed the time, so I'm going to pass this to David now.
Yeah, I'll share my screen.
Yeah. So I'd like to introduce David now. David, in the meantime, while Marcel is putting the screen and all that, would you like to do a small introduction here?
Sure, yeah. Thank you, Miriam. It's great to be here this morning, and hi to everyone. As Miriam mentioned, my name is David Courtois. I'm an immigration lawyer. I've been practicing specifically in business, entrepreneur-based and investor-based immigration for over 12 years now. 10 of which I specifically work I've been working on the startup visa program. So since 2015, back when it was still a pilot program. So I've seen pretty much all the iterations of the startup visa program, how it changed over the last decade. And believe me, there's been a lot of changes, and there's been a lot of things to track, a lot of court decision, a lot of improvements made over the years. Roughly, because it's been discussed as well that it's always important to work with people who have an idea of what they're doing, lawyers who have been practicing, because it's unlike any other immigration pathway you might take. I myself have supported by now over 145 startup businesses, which obviously means hundreds of applicants, since each team is up to 5 co-founders. So I think that give a good idea. So I'm the founder and managing director of JDL Immigration, and been collaborating with on the startup visa with global startups for the past 2 years, and happy to continue doing so moving forward. So Marcela, if you want to go on the next slide. So actually, I just wanted to, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. It's really just to give an idea, because of course, you guys have heard on the on the business side. So I want to talk about the process on the immigration side. It's really straightforward. So from the moment, basically, a startup team would be joining Global Startups program, a SUV program, then a complimentary discovery call will be able to take place. So free of charge, obviously, just in order to have a better idea of what's your situation. Situation means, of course, in terms of business background, but also from an individual perspective, each of the co-founders, what's your family like? How many family members do you have? What's your immigration goals? And really get an idea of what will be the composition of the startup and the immigration applications that need to take place in parallel of what you're doing business-wise. That would lead us to the second step, so the strategic roadmap, which is really just establishing a clear and actionable strategy in order to move forward, because it is not true. And if that's something you hear on social media, on Reddit, or if you read, or if you hear from friends or other people online that, I have the solution to a startup visa, you should just do it, work for me, it will work for you. Everything needs to be tailor-made. Everything needs to be customized, because there's not one size fits all in this program. And it's really important to understand you have different entrepreneurial business background, professional background, managerial background, but also personal family situations, potentially even immigration refusals. So the strategy needs to be tailored to you. Once this is done, we can start preparing the applications. I believe one of the questions was actually, how do we tackle permanent residence, work permit? Like, how does that work in terms of altogether? We'll see a timeline on the next slide, but basically it's important to prepare the PR application first, because startup visa is a permanent resident program first. So that's the main vehicle. That's what you're applying for, permanent residence in
Yo dije,
Canada.
Moni no va a llevar, yo le voy a acompañar a Moni, digo.
So the vehicle, the process that you're going through is basically, there'll be some documentation, some information that will be gathered on my end, drafting letters, preparing forms, and obviously this is a really collaborative process, not just between applicants and myself, but also with global startups on the business end, to make sure that, as 3 parts to this puzzle, we put everything together in order to have the strongest application from the beginning. As Miriam mentioned, this is not something we can change easily in the future, if at all, because most of the time it's too late anyways. So that's why it's important to really take all the time that we have, so the 6 months after the issuance of the LOS, to present the strongest application possible. Finally, continuous representation. Well, it's simply to say that the process doesn't stop once the application is submitted. That would be too easy. There's progress to be done all along, not just on the business end and trying to grow the business, but also on my end. I'll be continuously representing you, in my own tasks, my own mandate ends once a decision is rendered. So if it takes 3 years, well, it's 3 years down the line. There's no stopping, there's no extra fee, there's no other thing. It's just something that needs to be done. So that's overall the service process from an immigration perspective. So Marcela, if you can move to the next slide. So that is an overview of the general timeline based on startup that would work with global startups and would apply under the startup visa program. we're talking about here, so September to December, so let's say roughly fall 2025 discovery call. So that's when a team would be onboarded in order to go ahead with the process with global startups. So in parallel, we could start having our first consultation call, get discussion going, and also as soon as everything is established, move on to the next step, which is a strategic roadmap, and really start building the documentation and building the information. This is too often, I think Miriam touched on this earlier, too often people wait to get the letter of support to get going with this. This is normally a mistake. 6 months goes by really fast. In average, team members will take at least 3 to 4 months to gather all the information and documents they need. Why? Because some documents may take time. You might not have everything in hand. Some police certificates, for example, might take some time to obtain. There's also literally some information that may be misunderstood. There will need to be further calls in order to understand, in order to align all the presentations, all the preparation for the 5 or 4 or 3 team members, because yes, each application is different, but still need to be connected in a whole. That makes sense. So that's why it's always recommended to start as early as possible. That is also why, and I'll be able to touch on that because I believe it was one of the questions. I'll wait for the end, but this is also why there are discounts applicable if the work starts a little bit earlier, so before the month of December, simply because it's in everyone's advantage to basically save time and get going quickly in order to be as efficient as possible. January 2026 is the letter of support issuance, but as you can see, we're far from being done. So I don't want you guys to have the impression that this is your end goal, getting the letter of support, because this is sometimes how it's being marketed, like, oh, this is what I need to obtain in order to be able to be successful for startup visa. It's only the start. It's only one of your main core 4 requirements in order to be able to apply. So everything really starts from there. So we have, after the preparation and the submission of the PR application, so that can take place roughly 3 to 6 months after. I mean, it cannot be more than 6 months because obviously there's the validity of the letter of support that will expire. So it's important to submit the application, and as I mentioned, to submit it as strongly as possible from the beginning. So that's why it could be time consuming, but it's important to, once again, to start as early as possible. Now, the submission of the work permit would take place thereafter. One of the components in submitting a work permit application is to be able to show that the whole team has submitted their PR applications. And that's something that is really critical. Whether or not actually you proceed with a work permit application for any team member, it is important that every team member submit their PR application while the LOS is still, the letter of support is still valid. And that's something that is important. We cannot start proceeding without the whole team being ready to move forward, because it's already ingrained, it's already set in stone. The letter of support will list all the team members. So if anyone does not submit the application, you're already submitting with most likely a refusal waiting for you. So that's why it's an important aspect to keep in mind. A, for the success of the PR application, and B, to be able to move ahead with the work permit application, if applicable. All team members will have need to submit their PR by then. The work permit application will be strictly for what we call the members that are deemed essential for Canada. And to make it really simple, it's team members that will have the intention to travel to Canada in order to help growing the business, who will be settled in Canada to help, or at least spend a good amount of time working on the business in Canada, will be the ones who will be able to be deemed essential for Canada and who will be able to apply for a work permit as a result of that work that needs to be done within the country. It is not mandatory, it is optional. Obviously, it's always good to have at least 1 or 2 members per team, just to show that, as if you remember the requirements at the beginning, that there's some activity from within Canada, operations from within Canada, but obviously it depends on each and every business situation. Later on, once the approval will be rendered, and that's an important factor. The timeline for the PR application is always roughly 36 to 40 months, but for the work permit, it will depend on your country of nationality or country of residence. So it may differ a lot between different teams. Let's say that the processing time is 6 months, then roughly 6 months later, you'll receive the approval letter. You'll be able to travel to Canada, receive your show your approval letter, get your work permit, and get going with the work in Canada. And if we go back to the PR application, roughly 18 to 30 months later, you'll receive, not after the work permit, but from the beginning, 18 to 30 months from the beginning, from the submission, you'll receive additional documents requests. There'll be different requests. There'll be some for biometrics, some for medicals, and there will be normally there's always a big request as well, asking for business progress report. This is exactly what Miriam was mentioning about. This is an active immigration program. This is not you invest or you transfer, you incorporate or anything. You need to be actively involved to grow the business, because IRCC, which is the Immigration Department of the Government of Canada, will be interested in seeing what's the progress that you've done on this application. So this is almost as big as a new application, and that's why it is important to keep in mind that the representation goes all the way to the end, because this will be an important part. And obviously the best part is to get a permanent residence approved roughly 40 months down the line, and so you will be able to become finally permanent residents of Canada. I just wanted there will be one last slide. I'll go over it really quickly because I'm mindful of the time. It's once again just kind of a cautionary tale, like making sure that everybody's preparing well and some pitfalls to avoid. All of them have been touched on during this presentation, but just a quick reminder: letter of support is not the end goal. It's just really the beginning of the process. So, as Miriam mentioned, don't see it as something you need to purchase, but really something that you should genuinely be able to obtain based on your business, based on what your situation is, to get the green light and move ahead with the program. It's really important. 2, immigration officers do not have specific business background. That part is important because it's just for you to be aware that all that matters is how you present the information. Immigration officers they're not as tech savvy, business savvy as you are, which means that there's a way to present things. And that's where people like me, obviously I come into play, and I'm here to support you from an immigration perspective, because I know what they expect. I know how to present ideas so that to convey to them what they want to see, so that you can be successful. Otherwise, if they would be already business people, trust me, the program would be a lot faster than 40 months. So SUV is not an easy immigration process. It's more in order to ideally destroy this aura that maybe, there are only 4 requirements. It's easy. I have enough money. I have a business. I speak English. What can go wrong once I get the letter of support? As you've seen throughout the presentation so far, there are different steps where it can go wrong, whether or not it's your fault. It's not just a matter of having inadmissibility based on criminality or based on medical issues. It could go because partners leave the team, because not everyone applies at the right time, because settlement funds are not sufficient at the moment. IRCC wants to see what's your amount of funds available. It can go side, or of course, if your support is not adequate, some people might make mistakes in the way they build your application. So it can go in really different ways. So just keep in mind, it is not meant to be an easy application that can be easily replicated either. It needs to be customized for you. Changes, corrections may not be possible after submission. So yeah, there's basically, once the LOS is issued, it's basically frozen on time. Who are your team members, how it's going to move forward. So same once an application is submitted to the government of Canada, all this information will remain on your records in the future. No matter what you want to, you can add things, but you cannot necessarily correct things from the past. So that's important to get it right from the start. And finally, it's for your information, like countries such as Iran and India have high volume, which may create red flags. It is because statistics have been released in the past, and you see at the bottom of the page of the slide, there's been a lot, people were surprised because there's been more refusals proportionally than what people expected. So we're talking about 139 refusals out of 1,254 PR applications, which is approximately 11% by mid-2024. That is an average percentage, but in certain cases, in some countries, Iran and India have a really high level of high volume of applicants trying to apply for a startup visa. It may not be strictly like the country's fault, maybe because like there's a lot of traction with consultants, with agencies that are pushing this program. But whatever the case may be, just be aware that the high volume of applicants red flag these countries specifically. So officers are more careful. And as a result, country-specific refusal rates are a little bit higher. Like Iran is at 90%, so almost 1 out of 5. So it's even more important to make sure that everything is pristine from the moment applications are submitted. So yeah, so I believe that goes over. My goal was not to scare anyone with this, but really just to make sure that everybody prepare well. That's why it's the title of the slide. So it's not a matter of you should not go through the program. It's a great program. It's just it's important to prepare well, just like any other endeavor. The same way you would prepare for your business, and take into account that the immigration part is essential. Otherwise, you cannot operate the business anyways. The last slide is just for contact information, once again, if you want to take it. But in any case, I'm sure if you contact Global Startups, they'll be able to put you in touch. Obviously, the discovery calls start once the teams are confirmed for the cohort. Otherwise, that would be an endless amount of calls. But yeah, I'll be happy to talk to anyone. I believe there was one of the questions, so I'll go with it quickly because I mentioned the fees discounted. So everybody who would, fees are based on the number of team members. I believe the fees for, the incubation program by Global Startups has been indicated by JP in the chat. Fees per individual will depend on the team members. For a team of 1, 2, 3 members, the discounted rate would be at, if you apply by December, it would be at 20,000 Canadian dollars, while it would be at 15,000 Canadian dollars for a team of 4 or 5. We're talking about fee per co-founder. All right, thank you.
Okay, I'm not sure if we have any other questions that are for David based in the.
I think we already covered that is about like the PRs and work permits. Let me see. I have like another one.
If I may just step in, there was a question about what if the process takes 2 to 3 years and in interim the startup fails. I would highly suggest, because you as a business person may know that the startup is failing or that it's not going to work on the long run. I may just not flag it as it's failing. Once again, if clearly, like, I mean, the finance reflect that it's not working at all, or if there's something public, it's out of your control. But if it's just, like after 2 or 3 years, I don't think it will work. I think it's good to show that you're trying to make efforts to take it in the right direction, because from the moment you make it official, this startup won't work, I stop working on it, then you have no more vehicle on the immigration side to keep the process going. So you may want to to show that you're trying, even if you in your head you feel like it will be a failure, so that at least you still have a case to make that you're trying. Obviously, once the decision is rendered, you do not need to maintain a failing business, but the idea is at the very least that you can show that you've given it a try. For work permit applications, it's necessary though. Just keep in mind, for work permit application, you need to show that you're making that your business will have significant benefits to Canada. So not only you need to have operations from within Canada, etc., but you need to show what benefits Canada will have. So obviously the business cannot have failed at the moment you apply for.
Yeah, and to be honest, also, like many of the startups that we have, once they get permanent residence, sometimes they get to put a joint venture with other founders. Sometimes they kind of create a different type of business. That's also okay, as an entrepreneur, I myself put a lot of other business in the past. I know how is to grow a business. I'm very sympathetic with what you guys are doing. But failure is in the path of every entrepreneur. We have to deal with that. And it's totally okay if you want to create a joint venture after, or maybe you want to pivot or have a spin-off from the initial business that you have. That happens very often. David, you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to answer quickly because I think there's a question that's been copy-pasted a few times. So just to make sure I don't miss it, we're a team of 5 founders, 2 founders in Canada with a C11, how easy it is to transfer to the work permit to SUV. The answer is you need to apply for SUV first. So you need to transition to a PR application under the Startup Visa program in order to be able to then update the work permit to the start of visa work permit. Now, there's a couple of components here to keep in mind. First of all, the C11 normally is available for a year only. So there might be a time-sensitive component here because obviously it takes time to complete the program with global startups, then to get the letter of support, then submit the PR. That's why everything needs to fall along. It's not normally possible to extend the C11 work permit. So that's something that could be discussed in the consultation call down the line, but yeah, because it won't be possible to just transfer the C11 for the start of visa work permit without priorly having applied for a PR as well. Do we have to submit PR and work permit? I mean, this is something that I mentioned on the timeline. You need absolutely to have submitted the PR first. The PR application is the first step, and then once it's done for the whole team, you can apply. You can start applying for the work permit, provided that you're you're deemed essential on your team, meaning that you will be going to Canada. Yes. So it's PR first, then work permit.
Any other question, guys? I think Marcel, in the meantime, is answering some questions as well.
Yeah.
This is my final recommendation, if anyone has no other question, is that really, a Start Visa program is a program for entrepreneurs, is a program to immigrate. As a technical entrepreneur here, if you want to immigrate to Canada and you're taking this program as a way to immigrate to Canada, but you are not really an entrepreneur, you basically are going to have a failure in the process. And I'm saying this because I've seen also cases like that, okay? Unfortunately, in many other organizations, designated organizations that are colleagues of us, they get those cases, and that's wasting money, time. This is not a way just to immigrate. This is a way to bring a business here and immigrate as a process, okay? So if you see like, this is waste, I don't want to do that, totally okay, okay? You don't have to do this process. If you are unsure about what other process may be helpful for you to immigrate to Canada, then, you know, you can have that conversation with David or with any other lawyer. But just don't take this as an immigration way to enter to Canada. If you are not an entrepreneur, you are wasting your time and money. And we don't want anyone to waste time and money, right? So, and not sure, David, do you have any other recommendation?
No, I think this is a good word to go out. I think make sure that this program is for you and for your team. Once you have identified that this is something you want to go forward with, make sure that you surround yourself with co-founders or team members that are logical and that make sense, that you can trust, that you know as much as possible, simply because once again, you never know what will happen down the line. We've seen strong businesses that where the partners, even if they still liked each other, realize, oh, on the business side, like, yeah, I'm gonna leave, and then everything 2 or 3 years down the line is going to fail and then needs to be redone. It's cost. It costs are high. It's time consuming. This is not something you want to go through. Once again, we've seen a lot of quote unquote horror stories with things that went wrong. People that have been promised things. People that think they work with proper lawyers, but they're lawyers in their country, but not into Canada, so they cannot help. Consultants that promise something, but this is the old rule, the old program, etc., etc. So just make sure that yeah, you try to do things right from the beginning, and that's the best chance you have, really. And if there's any problem down the road, then yeah, we're always happy to take them one by one as they come, but at least put all your chances on your side.
Yeah, so I just want to say that this session is being recorded. We are going to put it in our YouTube channel. It's openly for anyone that requires information about the Start Visa program. We have been always very open to share this information with people. I think we have our last question here, David, and we need to finalize because, you know, we have overpassed
So,
1 hour. But
I might
yeah.
not see it. Where is it? Oh, okay. I just after applying for PR, what average time is taken again. So there's no timeline. Sorry. Yeah, okay. There's no timeline to apply for the PR. Once PR is applied for, there's no real timeline to apply for the work permit. So there's no deadline because once all the PR applications on the team are submitted, the letter of support remains valid throughout the PR process. However, the point of the work permit is to show that there are essential reasons and urgent reasons for someone to come to Canada and help building the business in Canada. So it's as soon as possible. Basically, if you plan on applying for a work permit, you should do so as soon as possible once the whole team submitted PR. And the reason is most of the documents will already have been gathered, so it'll be easier. They will still be valid, and also it will accelerate the process. Now, as far as how long it takes to get the work permit, some countries as fast as 1 month, some is as long as 1 year. So it really depends on your nationality, unfortunately, and it changes every week. So contact the lawyer. Well, obviously through my contact information that was passed earlier, but through Global Startups as well. Once you start the program, they'll be able to loop you in with me.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, David, also for the information. I'm pretty sure that if you have more questions, please send them over, but you can revisit this webinar anytime. Again, it's going to be in our YouTube channel. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.